Passover is over, we continue with our regular Torah portion and trying to find a little bit of inspiration. And Shemini is all about being kosher. You're going to love it. But actually, there's just a little bit that's not about the dietary laws and kashrut and all of those things. We see in the very, very beginning of the text that there's a process of ordination. And Aaron, who's Moses' brother, Miriam's brother, Aaron becomes the top priest, right? In those ancient days, we have Kohanim, a Kohen, a priest, and a priest is an intermediary. In order to get to God, you have to go through the priest. And the whole way of worship for them wasn't liturgy or singing or anything like that. It was sacrifice. It was giving up something that was important to you as a gift, as an offering to draw closer. That's the whole cycle then. But we're still in this very beginning of our story, not long after getting out of Egypt, and they have already built the Mishkan, this tabernacle, and now they're about to ordain these priests, put them into service. So right today, we still have Kohanim. They're all unemployed. There's no more sacrifice. We don't have a holy temple. So there is no role for them other than in traditional synagogues, some symbolic roles like having a first aliyah to the Torah. But here we see in the text that there's a 7-day ordination ceremony, and that begins Aaron's leadership. Aaron is the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and it ordains his sons so that they can serve this Jewish community. Their job is to take care of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the place where God is going to come down and dwell among the people so we can have a connection. We can kind of be up close and personal as much as possible with the God that they can't really see. And the text actually says, come forward to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering, making expiation for yourself. Expiation is a fancy word for like atonement. We're trying to reset a balance in the world. Making expiation for yourself and for your people. And sacrifice the people's offering and make expiation for them as Adonai has commanded. So there's two different sacrifices here, and our sages of old they're troubled by this. They're wondering, why does Aaron have to make two offerings? Well, one for him and one for the people. Well, that kind of makes sense. But the first offering is for him and the people. The second offering is for just the people. Some folks might think there's a redundancy, but our teachers tell us that there's nothing in the Torah that's superfluous. Everything has some kind of a meaning. Maimonides, this great scholar of medieval times, he says, only the innocent can atone for the guilty. So we have something in the ancient world that we're not really used to. We can't, in our day and age, make atonement for somebody else. They have to do it themselves, right? We say it every Yom Kippur. If we want our sins to be forgiven, then we have to go to the person directly. I can't ask God to forgive me for the naughty things that I do against my congregants, right? It doesn't work that way. I have to apologize to you for whatever I might have done. Certainly to my kids, certainly to my wife. Whatever I do, it's like spouses looking at each other like, that's right. Whatever we do, we have to take some aspect of responsibility. But in their day, the priest was to take responsibility. He had that on his shoulders. But before he can try and bring atonement to his people, he had to seek it for himself. He had to seek it for himself. Why do we see that Aaron does this twice, though? Once for him and the people, and then the people. I think that leaders, like Aaron, has to form their own connections to their peoples, to his or her own community. If you're a leader, you have to build some kind of kesher, some kind of connection. One can't lead, one can't help others atone until that leader models it. We need leaders in our world who don't just bark at others and don't just order directions, but lead by example. Aaron, so say our rabbis, can't bring others to atonement until he does it for himself and he shows that no one is immune from making errors, that there's nobody without sin and not a single person. And if it's good enough for Aaron, well, then we perhaps are more willing to take a step and to say, maybe I can find something that I've done where I've missed the mark. I think that's really significant leadership. I don't believe that our leaders today can atone for us. But if you're a leader, we set the example, don't you think? No matter what the leader is, and this isn't about politics. This is about life. Because if you're looking for something in the text to make a difference, then we also see the invitation to go a little bit deeper in our own selves, because all of us in this room, every single one of us, without exception, is also a leader somewhere. In our Torah, we know that we are to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Everybody is supposed to play the role as if they are a priest themselves, like Aaron. And they say that to remember the priesthood, because when that is said, there is no longer a temple to sacrifice at. This is something that is symbolic. But if we are all priests, if we are all leaders, if we all have that potential to make an impact as a mentor, as a friend, as a guide, well, then all of us have to watch out what our actions are. Not just our rabbis or pastors or clergy, not just our politicians or government leaders. There's no exception to who can make a difference. I think real leadership is about living out our highest standards. And that's why we're so hurt and we're disappointed when our leaders fall and fail in big ways. We think that it's all on them and they're the only leaders around. But I'm looking at these high school kids these days who are making these advocating, whether we agree or not is irrelevant for right now. But for our high school students who are advocating and making changes and talking about public policy, that's real leadership. And they're kids. Kids who are unwilling to accept the status quo, the way sometimes the adults are, the way sometimes we get caught up in homework or driving or more driving or paying our taxes on time or whatever else we might have to confront at work or at home. We have to deal with this balance, but now we see kids becoming leaders, and adults are starting to listen a little bit differently. I think that is extraordinary. So friends, if you are willing to step forward and recognize your leadership, if you recognize that someone is always watching you, whether it's our child or our parent or our friends or our neighbors, we get to show others how Judaism can offer meaning and insight and inspiration. We get to show how having Torah in our lives means that we get to find a path to peace. And I think that's true for other peoples and other faith traditions, but this is ours. This is where we are connecting. Right behind me, it says with that tree on the ark, it is a tree of life to those who cling to it. All of its paths are shalom, right? But we have to cling to it. We have to recognize what our roles are as priests today, the Kohanim of 2018, and how we can bring strength and dignity and integrity to others. I think Aaron had to model for his people. And Aaron is still our model, even to this day. His life has to reflect the values that we were taught. So now how do we do the same? How are our actions a reflection of what we were taught? all of those lessons, whether it's from parents or teachers or clergy, whomever they are, whoever our mentors are, wherever they are today, do we live those values out? Can we do better? Can we stretch and strive just a little bit more to try and act as if we are indeed one of the priests trying to bring holiness to a broken and fractured world? I think that's a huge responsibility on one level, an awesome opportunity on another level, and I do believe that's how we express our gratitude and our commitments to peace. Well, friends, let's move towards our conclusion. Page 5.